All right, so let's jump to number 17. On this section, they give you three different functions, and you're supposed to use the ones that you're supposed to use, right? So right here, we're going to plug in the negative 9 into the h of x function. So here's h of x, and I need to plug in a negative 9 right there. So to not get confused, I'm actually going to show all my work. That h of negative 9, let me write it, h of negative 9. I want to show my work right here and plug in negative 9 into that h of x function. So instead of x, I put a negative 9 right in there. And what's negative 9 plus 4? Negative 5. So what we really know here, or what we could conclude, is that h of negative 9 equals negative 5. Everybody understands that and agrees with that, right? Yeah. All right. So this h of negative 9 in here is really a negative 5. So what I really have is f of negative 5. So I need to take that negative 5 and plug it into f now. So my f function is x squared. So the answer is going to be x squared. But what am I plugging into the x position? I'm plugging in that negative 5. So negative 5 in parentheses squared, that's really a positive 25. So there's your final answer to f of h of negative 9. Let me reiterate what we just did. We took the negative 9, we plugged it into h, we got an answer, and then we took that answer and plugged it into f and got our final answer, 25. Got it? Yes. Okay, any other ones that you'd like to see explained? Let's jump to 10. Voila. So on this section, they want us to do h of g of x and also the other way around, g of f of x. I mean, g of h of x. Bless you. So they want us to plug in the g of x into the h of x. So you're going to say h of g of x. And they also want us to go the other way around, plug in your h of x into your g of x, g of h of x. Okay, so we first start out by writing down the notation of both. And let's begin with this one over here. I'm going to plug in my g into my h. So here's my g. I'm going to plug it into my h of x function right here. Okay. So if I had a number, if it said h of 5, all I would have to do is plug in a 5 right there into the parentheses, right? But it doesn't say 5. It says g of x. So what is g of x? X plus 6. So the x plus 6 goes right in there. Now this does require many steps to simplify this, because you do have 3 times, but then you have the exponent. You have to do the exponent first before multiplication, according to PEMDAS. So when you do x plus 6 to the second power, you're actually going to have to write it out x plus 6 times x plus 6. And you're going to have to distribute x times x, x squared. X times 6, 6x. 6 times x is another 6x. 6 times 6, ran out of space, 36. Combine the middle terms and you will get a 12x. So let me rewrite my answer here so far. X squared plus 12x plus 36. Now the thing is, I still need to multiply it by 3. This 3 out here, I still need to multiply my whole answer by that 3. So what's my final answer going to be? H of g of x is really 3x squared plus 36 plus, I don't know what that's going to be. That's going to be 100, no, 200 and, anybody have an answer for that? 208? 108? Yeah, why am I saying 208? 108. So that's one answer, but then you got to do the other one also. You also have to plug in h of x into your g of x function. So let's plug in our h of x into our g of x function. So if I had g of 5, all I would do is write 5 plus 6. If it would say g of 5, all I'd do is plug in a 5 and it'd be 5 plus 6, 5 plus 6. But it's not a 5 right here, it's a h of x. So I need to plug in this h of x into that parenthesis. So I'm going to take this 3x squared and plug it right in. Is there anything to multiply by out here? Anything to distribute? No, there's a plus sign. So you don't really need the parentheses. let's just rewrite it. Our final answer is g of h of x really is 3x squared plus 6. So both answers are required. The h of g of x and also the g of h of x. So let's jump right to number 11. So on this section, we want to plug in, again, there was a typo here. It shouldn't say g of f of x, it should be g of h of x, right? The h goes into the g. So right here, this should have been an h. So let's change that, please, if you haven't done so already. Was anybody absent and needs this worksheet? So again, they want us to plug in the g into the h and then the h into the g. So let's start out by by writing both notations. Let's plug in the g of x into the h of x function, okay? So what does my h of x function look like? It reads x minus 4. So instead of x, I put parentheses, I put the minus 4. And what am I actually plugging in the parenthesis? Anybody? See, if I had h of 5, all I do is plug in a 5 right there. But it's not h of 5, it says h of gx. So what is gx? That goes in here. What is gx? 3x. So we put in a 3x right in there. And you put in with parentheses just in case you're multiplying by anything. There's nothing to distribute. You're not even multiplying back here. So you really don't even need the parentheses. You're done. That's your answer. Wait, did you ask for 8 or 11?
He asked for 11.
11. Okay. Well, I might as well keep going here. So the answer is 3x minus 4. That's for the h of g of x. Okay, now let's do the opposite one, the g of h of x. Okay, so we're going to plug in the h of x into the g of x. So let's start by writing our g of x function. The g of x function really is 3x, but we put 3 parentheses, and we're going to plug in the h of x right in there, which is the x minus 4. That goes right in there, x minus 4. Now right here, the parentheses are definitely essential. They're appropriate because you have to distribute that 3 to both of them. So your final answer for g of h of x is 3x minus 12. I'm sorry, you asked for 11. Let's do 11. We want to do both g of h of x and h of g of x. So just write it down, g of h of x. Let's plug in our h of x into our g of x function. So let's first start by writing our g of x function, which is x plus 3. Right? If this would say g of 5, you just plug in a 5 and your answer would be 8. But it's not g of 5, it's g of h of x. What is h of x? H of x is 2x squared. So plug in this 2x squared right in there. And there is nothing to distribute, nothing to multiply, so that's your answer, 2x squared plus 3. That's your g of h of x. G of h of x. Now let's find h of g of x. H of g of x. So we're going to be plugging in the g of x into the h of x function. So here's my h of x function. Let me rewrite it, but with parentheses instead of the x. 2x squared. And inside my x, I'm going to plug in my g of x function, which happens to be the binomial x plus 3. So let me plug in this x plus 3 right in there. Now this one's a little bit more fun. Why? Because you actually have to do a lot of work. You're not going to multiply before doing exponents. You're going to do exponents before multiplying. So you're going to have to actually write that out twice. X plus 3 times itself, x plus 3. You're going to have to distribute x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is another 3x. And 3 times 3 is 9. And of course, the middle terms will combine together to give you a plus 6x. You have an x squared in front and a plus 9 at the very end. Let's not forget about the multiplication of 2 that's out in the front. I need to bring that down. Multiply this whole quadratic trinomial by 2, and that'll give you your final answer for h of g of x. So when I distribute the 2 into that quadratic trinomial, I'll get the final answer, 2x squared plus 12x plus 18. Cool? I hope. Any other questions you'd like to see on this homework? Any on the last section? So we're going to end this explanation of certain questions on this homework right here. The answers are on the back. If you guys need extra help, please stop by before or after school to ask for help. Let's move on to section 6.2.